and people who perhaps played a key part in political life as well.
They were all sorts. I mean, obviously we had the intelligentsia, the people who'd been educated, in a sense, out of Wales and gone to Oxford and Cambridge and then become lawyers and doctors and things. But we also had people from the artisan class, people who were candle makers or things like that.
In the 18th century, the Honourable Society of Cymrodorion is a club for those who want to assert their identity by delving deep into their history.
Actually, the name Cymrodorion in Welsh means Aborigines, and it was meant to try to find a phrase that would describe what the Welsh in the 18th century wanted to prove about themselves, that you can't really consider British culture or English culture unless you go back to the original population of the British Isles, which was the Welsh.
One enthusiastic member of a London Welsh society is about to embellish history to great effect and leave Wales with one of its most defining traditions. The Gorsedd ceremony is performed by bards at the annual National Eisteddfod. Musicians, poets and writers are draped in druidic robes and perform rituals that hark back to pre-Roman times. But far from being an ancient Celtic tradition, the Gorsedd is invented in the 18th century. By Edward Williams, a stonecutter and poet from Glamorgan. He's better known by his pen name, Iolo Morgannwg. Mary Ann Constantine has studied his life and works.
Iolo Morgannwg is one of the main architects of Welshness, if you like. A lot of the ingredients that he threw into the pot at around this time have stayed as essential elements of what it means to be Welsh. But what he does discover is that people are interested in this ancient Welshness because there's a big revival in all things Celtic.
Iolo is obsessed with Wales, its language, its beauty, and its history. He wants to create a romanticised, mystical Welsh past, one that never actually existed.
One of the things he does is he walks across Salisbury Plain and he sees Stonehenge. And that's a key moment in his life because the big stones, which are still deeply mysterious to people at the time, they set him thinking, and he does everything he can to find out about the ancient British past and the part that Wales could have played in that.
With the help of his vivid imagination and some laudanum, that's the opium of its day, he falsifies an ancient language. He carves the script onto sticks, claiming that this wooden book, or Pythonen, was used by ancient Welsh poets descended from Druids 2,000 years ago.
One of Iolo's most inspired inventions was an alphabet, which effectively proved that the ancient British were literate and learned and educated, just as the Greek and Romans were, way back in the mists of time. It's a series of, well, little sticks, really, inscribed with various important bardic mottos in the ancient alphabet. It's almost like a child's invented alphabet, your own secret code.
Having claimed that he's the discoverer of an ancient bardic tradition, Iolo then invents a theatre in which to perform this tradition. So he makes his own druidic circles with pebbles. He gathers some literary friends, reenacting the supposedly ancient custom of the bards. In the 1790s, this little band of Georgian Welshmen is the first true Gorsedd.
This is the very first place where he can welcome other people into this fraternity. But once people have bought into the idea, the thing grows, and you start having Gorseddau around Wales. The thing takes on a life of its own. Y gwir yn erbyn y byd.
Iolo's Gorsedd starts to be performed in local Eisteddfodau. Over time, the ceremonies grow more elaborate, and new rituals are invented. By the 19th century, it is the centrepiece of the National Eisteddfod and remains so to this day. Iolo and his forgeries aren't rumbled until long after his death in 1826, but during his lifetime, the public lap it up. Iolo has started a cultural reawakening at a crucial time.
As industrialisation takes root and gains ground and literally starts to change the landscape and territories of people's homelands, people start to feel that they're losing something. Iolo's part and parcel of that big European movement to retrieve the past before it's too late. And simultaneously, desperately trying to promote and rescue Welsh culture from what they felt was an inevitable ruin and decline as industrialisation took over.
While Iolo Morgannwg gives Wales a dignified story of its past, the wheels of industrialisation thunder on. And one particular industry will forge a new era for Wales. It will bring vast wealth, aching poverty, and terrible slums. Iron. From 1756 onwards, Britain is involved in naval conflicts around its ever-expanding empire, and its navy is hungry for iron to manufacture its weapons. So English ironmasters are on the hunt for coal to fuel their furnaces. South Wales has that, and much more than they expect. What the English ironmasters find in South Wales is a money-making paradise. Plenty of coal, fast-moving streams for water power, limestone, iron ore, all the raw materials for making iron in one place. It's as if the hills around the small village of Merthyr Tydfil are made for the iron industry. The ironmasters who arrive here in the 18th century have hit the jackpot, and Merthyr Tydfil is about to feel the impact of their discovery. Richard Crawshay is an iron merchant who's made his fortune in London. With an eye for a good investment, he buys one of the new ironworks around Merthyr. Over the next 30 years, Cyfarthfa becomes the most profitable ironworks in the world. Today, what remains of it is still impressive. Historian Chris Evans is going to show me why Cyfarthfa is so important.
I'm astonished by the scale of this place, really. It's immense, isn't it?
It is immense, but you've got to imagine when the works were in their heyday that this space would have been occupied by a blowing engine, a really vast piece of machinery that would have driven air into the heart of the furnaces themselves.
When you say furnaces, how many?
Oh, there's plenty here. We're looking at one here, there's one there, and further down there would have been another 4 in a rank. So we're talking a lot of furnaces consuming a lot of air. So, if we go this way, we can see how it worked.
Today, it's only the access tunnels to the furnaces that remain. They once drew air into the kilns, 60 feet high. Back then, these passageways could reach temperatures over 1,000 degrees centigrade. It's like being in the heart of a giant oven.
Chris, why are these works so important?
Well, these works at the end of the 18th century were the largest in the world by some considerable distance. The reason why these works are important is not just the blast furnaces, it's the fact that the pig iron that was made in these blast furnaces was then processed by a revolutionary technique, puddling and rolling, or what became known as the Welsh method.
Puddling, or the Welsh method, is hot, dangerous work, stirring molten iron to refine it and increase productivity. But it takes Crawshay and his men 3 years of experiments before it is commercially viable. The Welsh method produces iron that is strong and cheap.
So Crawshay himself was, what, a groundbreaking pioneer?
He was indeed. He was able to do so because he had money to devote to it. He was an extremely rich London merchant and he could afford to throw resources and time at developing a technique that was, in other respects, hard to crack. So it's his money made in London, deployed in Merthyr, that makes the big difference.
You got pots of money.
Loads of it. And once he'd cracked it, he made pots more.
Crochet has perfected the Welsh method. Not bad for an Englishman. It revolutionises the iron industry in Merthyr and beyond.
If in the mid-19th century we went to the Ruhr in Germany or we went to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, we would find that technique being used there. It becomes a global technique, the global success story.
By 1802, Cyfarthfa iron is at the forefront of the Napoleonic War effort. It attracts a visit from the greatest naval figure of the day, Admiral Lord Nelson. Just 3 years later, with his Welsh-made iron, he wins one of the most decisive naval battles in history, Trafalgar. This new commercial Wales needs a new transport system to carry the heavy cargoes of its industries. Canals replace wagons and horses. They are the motorways of the 18th century. Great engineers display their inventive genius in North Wales, completing the Pont Cysylltu aqueduct in 1805. It is a monument to the confidence and wealth of this new era. But the most revolutionary transport of this time is about to be born, right here in Wales.
In 1804, the owner of the Pen-y-Darren Ironworks, Samuel Homfrey, makes a bet with his fellow ironmaster, Richard Crochet. The wager is 1,000 guineas, an absolute fortune in today's terms. And he bets that he can build a steam engine that can take 10 tons of iron from Merthyr to Abercynon. It's about 9 miles. True to form, Crochet can't resist the challenge.
Homfrey enlists the help of a Cornish engineer, Richard Trevithick. He builds the world's first working steam engine that runs on rails. On the 21st of February 1804, people come from far and wide to witness the great experiment. Five trams set off, loaded with iron, and 70 men.
But it isn't long before disaster strikes. The chimney of the locomotive collides with a low bridge. There's a lot of damage. Well, Trevithick repairs the engine, clears away the rubble, patches up the chimney, and before long, he's on his way again at the hair-raising speed of 5 miles an hour.
Nine hours later, Trevithick, his engine and cargo reach Abercynon still intact. The ironmaster's wager proves that steam locomotion is possible and that railways are the future. But the revolutionary changes of this time are not confined to trade and transport. This is also a time for revolutionary ideas. One Welshman, Dr. Richard Price, has ideas about liberty and freedom that will help ordinary people fight for their rights. His controversial ideas spread not only in Wales, but to England, to Europe, and even to America. He's been described as the greatest thinker Wales has ever produced. And he's buried at Bunhill Fields in London, the resting place of many famous radicals and dissenters.